Hi class, my name is Francis Marrone. This is going to be my response for the discussion forum questions chapter 8 on stratification, class, and inequality. For this chapter, I decided to talk about the first question prompt, inequality, which states, is inequality declining or increasing in the United States? Support your answer with 3 sociological arguments or data points. So first, I just want to talk about I want to define a quick definition, which is going to be important in examining this question. And the definition has to do with Kuznets' curve. And Kuznets' curve is a formula showing that inequality increases during the early stages of capitalist development, then declines and eventually stabilizes at a relatively low level. This was advanced by the economist Simon Kuznets. And essentially what this formula shows is that, like I said, inequality starts to increase during the early stages of capital development, but then declines and eventually stabilizes. But this curve works as the economy works. So for example, in the post-World War II era, inequality declined in the part of due to the economic expansion. We saw, for example, Levittown on Long Island was one of the first suburbs built, and we saw a lot of these local suburbs being developed. The American expansion created a bigger gap. Then it started to stabilize a little bit, decrease, and then it stabilized. So at post-World War II, this expansion created opportunities for people at the bottom to move on up, and the government, and in part to government health insurance, welfare, and other programs aimed at reducing inequality. And we see that today with EBT cards, welfare, things like that, things to try to reduce inequality. So moving towards today in the United States, we all know that the recession in 2008 kind of jump-started this process again. And since the 2008 recession, which was now 13 years ago, the gap between rich Americans and a lot of others has increased significantly. One just quick example is CEOs of companies on the S&P report, the Standard & Poor's stock index, earned on average $11.7 million a year annually, which is 331 times the average worker compensation of $35,200. 30 years ago, the S&P CEOs only averaged 46 times as much as the average worker. So just based on that number, you could see the gap 331 times the salary. The gap is growing. The idea behind the Kuznets curve may have held true for much of the 19th centuries, but it will hold true for the 21st century obviously remains an open question. We don't know what is going on in the future. Nobody knows, but that's just one point. However, you see today, with the gap increasing, you also see a growth in movements such as, if you look at stimulus checks, that's a hot topic. Things like that are trying to decrease the inequality, but like I said, I still see it growing. Things such as stimulus checks could be a second argument. And I would say another third argument that could be made for sure with increasing, ultimately, my point is inequality is decreasing. However, there are trends to show that it might be decreasing. For example, the stocks AMC and GameStop, where free public traders, novice traders, took advantage of the shorting of stocks, and things like that are actually decreasing inequality, financially at least. You see more and more people getting involved in the stock market nowadays. Things like this are what's decreasing inequality in the United States. Inequality in general is up to individuals. It's a choice that they make. It's the beauty of this country. But ultimately, I think inequality is increasing. And I just want to say thank you. I hope everyone's staying safe, and talk to you next week.